Hey guys, before we get started, I just want to apologize for the lack of uploads recently. I've been super busy with stuff outside of YouTube, but hopefully now I can get back on schedule. Thank you to everyone who's been waiting patiently for an upload. With that being said, let's begin with today's video. About a week ago, Polaroid Studios released a teaser trailer titled Apeirophobia: Escape from Reality, Patient Log Number 2. Today, I'm going to be breaking it down and analyzing everything we see and hear. Let's start from the beginning. The video starts off with a shot of a tape recorder and quickly switches to a different scene with a pretty standard looking room. We've actually seen this room before in a recent sneak peek for the upcoming hospital level. In this image up on screen, we can see that the windows and the chairs match up with the ones in the teaser. Though I should mention, some things are out of place, which I'll get into more a little later. Alongside this, we get our first ever audio appearance of Dr. Holland and a patient, or who we believe to be the main character of the game. If you don't know who Dr. Holland or the patient are, or haven't been keeping up with the lore of Apeirophobia, I'll quickly sum it up for you. The patient is the character we play as in Apeirophobia. He was in an unfortunate accident which led to him falling into a coma. Whatever is going on inside his mind throughout this coma is shown through the events of Apeirophobia. Dr. Holland is one of the many doctors who've been trying to help the patient navigate through this nightmarish reality. They are the ones responsible for the arrows you see in-game. If you want to learn all about it, I suggest checking out my lore playlist up on my channel. Link to that will be in the description below. But anyways, let's continue on with the teaser. I should mention that I won't be focusing on every little piece of dialogue as there is a ton to dissect here, but I will, however, save that for another video. If you'd like to check out the full trailer, I'll leave a link down below, though I'll still be discussing the important bits and pieces that are said. Throughout the beginning of the recording, Dr. Holland reassures the patient that everything they talk about is just between the both of them, and that it's a safe space to talk. This is typically what therapists say to their clients when they try to get them to open up. The patient then explains that things have been difficult since the accident, which, if you've been keeping up with the lore, you'll know this is a huge thing at the moment. There have been constant mentions or reminders of some sort of car accident leading up to the patient's coma. But if that's the case, then this log must take place after that incident. After the patient in the recording mentions the accident, Dr. Holland asks if he'd like to talk about it, to which the patient responds with a strong negative answer.
It's a tough day for us all. Do you want to go into it a little more?
I don't want to talk about that.
I know it's tough, but eventually we are gonna have to talk about it.
I said I don't. End of story.
Then the recording cuts to some VHS style footage where we see the player crawling through some vents. The same vents we've seen before in a previous sneak peek. It's hard to make out anything we see in this footage, but we can definitely tell it's some sort of ventilation system. The video then cuts back to the same room we were shown before at a different angle. In this angle, we get a better view of the surrounding objects. We see the same chairs we saw in the back and a sofa couch behind the table. Again, typically therapist offices have a couch for the client to lay on while the doctor or therapist asks questions. We then hear Dr. Holland apologize for something. It's hard to make out what it is he's apologizing for, since after he says this, he follows it up with,
I'm sorry. I had no idea you were there, right? But we still have a long day ahead of us.
Once again, he asks more about what else happened that day. Assuming he means the day of the accident, the patient then starts to explain, but of course, the video cuts out and we're back in the vents. This time, however, it's a bit more interesting. The player is still seen crawling in the vents, but he hears something, turns around, and we get the slightest glimpse at a Titan Smiler. He then mutters something and sounds awfully like the same patient from the log, so I think it's pretty safe to assume the patient we play as in Apeirophobia is the same patient talking to Dr. Holland in this log. This could explain why we'll see a very similar looking therapist office in the upcoming hospital level that we see in this teaser. It seems like he's a returning client. For this similar looking room to pop up in one of his memories, or levels I should say, means that he's had to have seen it prior to his coma. The video then cuts back to a view of the recording log and Dr. Holland says,
I know you stole his camera. What happened after specifically?
This completely threw me off my trail, and at the moment I have no idea what this means, so apologies for that. Feel free to let me know what you think of it down below. Dr. Holland once again asks what happened after this, but the patient couldn't give a straight answer. They talk a little more, but then the patient drops one of the most important lines yet. He says,
Okay, I feel like it's at fault for his death.
I feel like I'm at fault for his death. And not even a second after, the same Titan Smiler we saw before is now chasing the patient. Everything in this scene is very reminiscent of level 6. The entity, the claustrophobic setting, the red lights, and the alarms. Pretty interesting. This could mean one of several things. We're getting the Titan Smiler as a third entity in the hospital. This is simply just for the teaser, as the Smiler is practically the mascot of Apeirophobia. Or, my favorite assumption yet, we're getting a mini Smiler that strictly roams the vents, which is similar to how the small music man works in Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. It's very unlikely this is the case, but I think that'd be really funny. As for what the patient means when he says he feels like he's at fault for someone's death, I can't really say. I do have a few speculations, however. It's highly likely he's the one who was put in the coma, but someone else who was in the car suffered a worse fate. Here's a crazy thought for you. What if this person that died is represented through the Watcher? I know this contradicts my last theory, but I mean, part of that video got debunked within 3 days of its release due to this trailer alone. But think about it. A haunting memory that the patient has to face, a regret, a feeling of guilt, all manifested into the form of the Watcher. Maybe this is why the word killer is written on this painting here. But like always, we're just gonna have to wait and find out in chapter 2. With that being said, that's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing, as I post everything and anything Apeirophobia related so you won't miss a thing. Thank you guys so much for the support, and stay tuned for next upload. Bye!